meeting to order. This is for the budget. At this time, may I have roll call, please?
Carlson. Hurtak.
Here.
Clendenin.
Here.
Henderson.
Present.
Vieira. Miranda. And Maniscalco.
Here.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, may I get a motion to open the second public hearing for consideration of the FY 2025 millage rate budget and capital improvement budget? We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember.
I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, if you could just read the statements that have been prepared for us verbatim, so it's in the record, and
Okay.
if you can, I'd appreciate that.
I'd like a motion and a roll call vote to open the second public hearing for consideration of the FY 2025 millage rate, FY 2025 budget, and FY 2025 to 2029 capital improvement budget and program for the city of Tampa. Per Florida Statute Section 200.065, the FY 2025 final millage rate needs to be adopted by a separate vote prior to adopting the operating and capital improvement budget. We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Henderson. Roll call vote.
Carlson. Hurtak.
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Vieira.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, Councilmember Miranda, would you read
Thank you,
the
Mr.
second
Chair.
public hearing statement?
This is second hearing for the statement of opening, passing the budget. This is the second public hearing for the city of Tampa fiscal year 2025 budget. The proposed millage rate of 6.2076 mils, which is 4.00% more than the rollback millage rate of 5.9691 mils. Property tax funds are used to support the general fund operating budget and the community redevelopment agency funds of the city. The general funds include such departments as fire, rescue, police, human resources, parks, and recreation.
Thank you very much, sir. At this time, Chief Bennett, will you please proceed with your presentation?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
may I have an intern. Do you mind if I acknowledge him really fast because he's here? Would that be okay? 2 seconds? Sure. Thank you, sir. You're very kind. I wanted to acknowledge AJ Karademir, who is here, who's a junior from the University of South Florida. If you don't mind standing up. He seems to be a very nice individual. He is an international student originally from Turkey, and you'll be seeing him around the office. So welcome here, sir. We really love having you. We look forward to working with you. Come on up. I know.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I was here last week and it was my first experience. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm kind of a bit excited, so I don't have a lot to say.
Oh, you don't need anything. You're good. Well,
so
thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Chief Bennett.
Good evening, Council. John Bennett, Chief of Staff, and good evening to the public. Prescriptively, I'd like to read the motion for the public's sake, so when I respond, it's in correlation to that motion made on September 5th. Staff to present a graphic that shows the data on all positions that have been vacant for 6 months or greater, which we'd like to use 180 days for just the comparison, including Tampa Police Department and Tampa Fire Rescue. So I'm going to throw a graphic up on the overhead, and then I'm going to try and walk through it so you can see how it mathematically breaks down. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes.
Let me just... Now, on the header, you see as September 2024, which is in fiscal year 24. So this is kind of a point-in-time snapshot of our personnel and staffing because it's very dynamic below the authorized positions. And of course, the authorized positions that are recommended in the fiscal year 25 budget are different than what you're seeing here, but not far off. So at the very top, you see that there's 5,031 total authorized positions. And then you see a vacancy rate of 381, which is 7.57%. I'm going to put a pin in that and go down to the bottom and answer the question that was put into the motion. On the very bottom left, you'll see 14 positions, which represent less than 1%, 10 police, 4 fire that have been vacant, according to our analysis with the Budget Office, Human Resources, working with the individual personnel divisions in the sworn space that are vacant for 180 days. I'm going to caveat that with what I said publicly last time, that a lot of time this is position analysis, meaning that the oldest position might not be the one that gets a requisition to be filled. And for clarification, in the budget of FY '25, fiscal year '25, there is an Oracle upgrade that will solve this problem. Right now, it is a manual process to select the right position, to submit to HR, Human Resources, to get the oldest position up on top. So what happens is we have younger positions that are getting filled and some of the other positions are falling down. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have a position that's sitting idle for 180, it's just that slot wasn't filled. And so more on that. Now on the right side, there's 2 positions out of a total of 24. So if you go 2 rows up, you'll see plus 22 vacant 180 days. Those 22 of the 24 that are vacant for 180 days are being actively recruited. A lot of times, when the department gets a vacancy, they will look at their business case. The mayor, as I said last time, challenges everybody to repurpose a position before we add a position. So they might be doing job description rewrites, repurposing, reclassifying positions. So the ones over 180 days probably had some work going on, but they are now actively recruited out of 22 of the 24. The 2 at the very bottom representing just a little over 0.06%, 1 parking position, 1 convention center. Those both had reworks done. They were not approved. They're back at the drawing board, which is why they're in excess. And they're kind of what I would call dormant at this time because those 2 positions haven't had the rewrites. So now I'll come back up to the top again. So we started with 5,031 total authorized positions. And of course, FTEs, full-time equivalents, are based on 40 hours. So by example, if you have 4 part-time positions at 30 hours each, that would equate to 3 full-time positions of 40 hours. So that's why you have less full-time equivalents as compared to 5,031 people. So just to get that top bar out of the way. On the left side, we'll stay over there on the sworn positions. There's 1,807 authorized sworn positions. Tampa Police Department has 1,014. Tampa Fire Rescue has 793. The occupancy of those both departments is close to 94%. There's 63 vacancies on the police side, amounting to 6.21%, 46 vacancies on the fire side, representing 5.8%. But as you walk down that graphic, you can see that 50 of those, 30 police, 20 fire, under active recruitment. The police and fire side take much longer than the non-sworn side to get on board. They have to go through polygraphs and physicals and all sorts of things that are different than the non-sworn. So that process, both police chiefs could speak to the fact of how long that takes for them to onboard recruits. In the pending recruitment, recently vacant, those are positions that really just left the city. So they haven't even turned over the paperwork to fill those slots yet. So there's 45 there, 23 police, 22 fire. And then the bottom left, I already spoke to the 10 police and the 4 fire. A lot of times that is just typically on the police side, they may be filling specific positions that are unrelated to the front lines. And those positions may lag because they'd rather put people out on the front lines taking calls, so those positions will roll over. So again, it's more slot math. And once again, that Oracle upgrade, if approved in the FY25 budget, will take care of a lot of this without human interaction. On the right side, we have 3,224 authorized positions with about a 92% occupied rate. However, there's 173 being actively recruited, which is a pretty significant number above that. And the 22 I've already talked about that are over 180 days are still under active recruitment, and then 75 recently vacated, and then down to the final 2 that need rework on those positions. And at that point, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Hurtak, this was your motion.
Yes, and Chief of Staff briefed me on this earlier today. I appreciate this. I think it's one of the things that we have constantly heard about, especially when it comes to police and fire, is not filling the positions. So I think these numbers are important and the visual is very clear. But definitely I'm concerned about the 22 positions that are vacant for over 180 days. And what do you do to try to fill those positions? I mean, do you possibly change the job description? I mean, if you can't find someone in 180 days, does that speak to what the city is asking for?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a very broad answer. I'll start with it, and then, of course, I'll phone a friend if we need more. But a lot of times, the business unit will be looking to make sure the job description is relevant, make sure it meets the market standards. Maybe we're off on the market. I will tell you, a lot of the competition we have now is teleworking. The community is used to teleworking in the private sector. They were teleworking during COVID. And so sometimes we need to work through that process and see if there's some opportunity there. But once that job gets released from the business unit or the department or division back to HR, that time goes down. So I want to say, and I'm saying this anecdotally from looking at the records before we got to the slide, that if you take the sworn out of it, which again, a longer process, I want to say across the entire landscape, it's about 70 days total for all positions. And when you add sworn in, because of the length, it's about 90 days total. But again, I'm speaking anecdotally. So we do look at it case by case, and again, they're very challenged. Hopefully you see that in the FTE count in the recommended budget, that we have less FTEs that we did in 2007, because we're trying to be more efficient and effective with technology and processes, not just people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. O'Hara, please proceed with your presentation.
Were we gonna have public comment on that?
No, we're going to take public comment right after this, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Council. Dennis Rajero, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you once again for having us here for the second public hearing of the fiscal year 25 recommended budget. Thank you also, and as always, and thanks to Ms. Kopesky, your analyst, for all the time and effort and energy that you and we've all put into this endeavor. Not only when the process started months and months ago, but it's been 2 months now since the mayor made her budget presentation. And I wanted to take the time to thank you, especially because this machine has a lot more moving parts than it did last year. You got an earlier budget. You've got a complete line item budget for the first time, I think, in a decade. You got an additional workshop solely devoted to the capital improvement project, and a complete historical carry forward for your entire 5-year capital improvement program. You know, from my personal vantage point and our goal to make sure you and the public have all the information you need to make an informed and educated decision on the budget, I really think the process, our dialogue continues to improve. So thank you. I hope you think it continues to improve also. Once again, you see leadership is here to answer any questions and provide additional information. We have no formal presentation this evening, simply the deliverables that we've committed to you from our first public hearing. Mr. Perry, I believe, passed out the motions, or a summary of your motions as we understand it from the first public hearing. And if you have any corrections or augmentations, please let us know.
Thank you very much. Does that conclude this portion? Because I'm going to take it to council member, for the first round of questions and comments, and then go to public comment.
I have one other deliverable, sir, and that's the social action and arts funding.
Okay.
This is information, most of which the council has received in the past through various iterations, but you'd asked us to come back with a categorization for each of them, and also the difference between the current year budget and the fiscal year 25 budget, and where that request originated, and you'll see that. And I can put it on the Elmo if you'd like.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Elmo?
Go ahead, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
And on the far right, you see the categorization, various from animal services, arts, culture, economic development was a specific one council wished to be isolated out, and you can see the rest. You also asked for which agencies were receiving $25,000 or more and did not, as of yet, have an agreement, and you see that in the second column to the right. The name of the organization, of course, follows. The current year budget, along with, or right before the recommended budget for fiscal year 25, the changes City Council made on September 3rd, and what the total appropriation is recommended at this time, not approved by council, and the increase versus the fiscal year and where that increase originated. And on the second page, of course, our current total of unallocated funding. You have the overall total, but also what we have recorded as available in unallocated funding. And we can answer any questions you may have.
Councilmember Hurtak had her hand up, Councilmember Clendenin. and
I
Councilmember
wanted
Viera.
to go back to this first one.
Oh, apologize, yes.
Under the Ybor Art Space, the appropriating of the 500,000 from, I thought that was unassigned fund balance, not assigned.
Good eye, ma'am. Good eye. Yes, it is unassigned.
Also, and I thought that was coming from the 2024 budget, but are you just saying that unassigned funds are just,
It will originate from the 2024 budget. Yes,
I
ma'am.
wanted to double check on that.
Apologies for that. Nice catch.
Thank you.
Oh,
And I think that's it.
yes, ma'am. Councilmember Clendenin, Councilmember Viera.
I had asked this question in the first presentation. I don't think we actually got to it or got an answer, and then I, to be honest with you, didn't think about it again until I saw it on the paper. Leadership Development Resources.
Yes, sir.
Can somebody explain to me what that is?
I do not know what that is. I'll defer to Chief of Staff. No? I know we have a number of leaders online. Anybody want to chime in?
No, I asked it, they didn't answer it.
And I apologize if that got
Does
through
anybody
the
in
net in
staff
terms
that's
of an
listening to this know
explanation.
what that line is?
Remember Kelly from HR, she addressed it when people were asking for more leadership.
No, she's shaking her
Are you
head.
talking about
That
a
was-
natural?
That was a different
There was
item.
something else? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, no, it wasn't for,
Are you talking about a specific nonprofit?
this year, 120. It's a new item.
That's the-
I'm not familiar with it.
I Googled it and I pulled it up.
I don't know where it originated.
Unless they can answer.
oh, it was from the administration, I see it's on the section.
John Bennett, Chief of Staff, just to try and be precise about answering the question, because it is a new amount, we would have not had a logic model, which is the ones that we've been using prior to an agreement. Clearly, we don't have a scope of work. So being in a new amount, where the request came from, we'd have to research.
Okay, so
Oh, it definitely came from the
administratively,
administration.
can we unassign that, and then we can revisit that from a motion from council at a future date, so we understand what it is?
Certainly.
Okay.
So I've actually got a couple other motions to make sometime in this discussion, but for this one, I would make a motion to unassign the Leadership Development Resources line of $120,000 to unassign, to be revisited by council at a future date.
We have a motion and a second. Chief?
I just want to point out that if it was left on, this is an option only, if it was left on the list, it would still have to go through the scope of work and come back to council for approval. So it depends on the formality of managing the budget administratively, either way, but either way is fine.
I'd just be more comfortable
That's fine.
before I assign money, knowing what I'm assigning money to.
Yeah.
So just-
We have a
thank you.
motion, we have a second. Roll call vote?
Hurtak,
Yes.
Clendenin,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Vieira. Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson. And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, this is as good a time of any, I guess. One is a cleanup, and it's referenced the salary increases and other expenses, that we make sure we have a motion for that, to have the money allocated. So I motion to transfer $140,000 in salary expenses from personnel reserves to the city council department, as well to increase the city council budget to by $34,000 for miscellaneous operating expenses, which are in line with the 24 run rates.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Carlson. Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Clendenin,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Vieira.
No.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson. Hurtak.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried with Vieira voting no.
Go ahead.
My-
Wait,
I have a question, I apologize.
Councilmember Vieira.
And I, just really quick, that was for the city council salary. Okay, wanted to make sure what I voted.
Yeah, it was,
Just making
because
sure.
we, while we did it, we didn't move the funds to.
Just making
accommodate.
sure I
Okay.
wasn't, okay.
So the second motion is I motion to appropriate any general fund unassigned fund balances in excess of 23% of the general fund operating expenditures to the street resurfacing project 1002350 subsequent to the close of FY '24 financial statements.
Do we have a second? Second from Councilmember Miranda, Councilmember Hurtak.
So I love the idea, but we still don't know how much money that is.
Well, that's why it's subject to the closeout.
So we wouldn't actually do it until November when we get that fund, because remember, we have a motion coming back with the rollover funds and the extras on November 21st.
Yeah, I think what this does is it sets an expectation from council to the administration about how we're.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're
subject to.
I,
what
I
the
see
key-
that, but
Yeah.
my only other thing, because I mean, what if we have $20 million left and they don't have the ability to use that? So I'm just saying, as long as we're not saying
Well,
100% everything's going there, we're still gonna be able to have a conversation.
Well, and that's interesting because I had a lot of this discussion with subject matter experts on this about assigning that specific project code, because what will end up happening is, we have the paving machines now, so that's a different cost code. So there's going to be a time that even with this, the administration will have to come back to council to reallocate the funds as they always do.
Okay, well, I mean, as long as we're just talking about like what it looks like, yeah, then, I mean, 100%, it is a priority, so thank you, I just wanted to clarify that.
We have a motion and a second, roll call vote.
Henderson,
Yes.
Vieira. Miranda. Carlson. Hurtak.
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Anything else, sir, before I go to Councilmember
That's
Vieira?
all.
Councilmember Vieira, you're recognized, sir.
Yes, sir, thank you very much. I had sent out a memo, Dream Builders Mission, that does a lot of work in the North Tampa, Sulphur Springs area, that they receive roughly $42,000, and in light of some changes that have happened that we've read in the paper, I wanted to increase them to $75,000. They do a lot in assisting and helping the homeless and in food distribution, and I've known Pastor Harrison there for a very long time. So to seek to accomplish this, would I need to do a motion at this time?
Sir,
or-
what is the organization, how much are they at now?
Yes,
Dream
sir.
Builders?
Dream.
846.
Uh-huh.
And you want to take them up to what?
75, which would be another $32,154.
Second.
We have a motion? This is
Unassigned.
unallocated.
The unallocated.
Yeah.
the motion, right, from unassigned?
Oh, yeah, you need to say it's from unallocated.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So Councilmember Vieira has a motion to move the funds from the unallocated, which is
Yeah.
$87,500, to Dream Builders to increase
Yes, sir.
their funding. We have a second from Councilmember Hurtak. Councilmember Carlson, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Chief of Staff, maybe you all had the same conversation, but my concern is that with Trinity shutting down, there was a takeover of Trinity a few years ago by Feeding Tampa Bay, and my question to the Chief of Staff was, isn't Feeding Tampa Bay still providing services in some way, and shouldn't we support them? Well, could you just tell us what the answer was?
Or again, John Bennett, Chief of Staff. Of course, I have a close working relationship with Feeding Tampa Bay for some of the services they provide to our partners, including Tampa Hope. And I asked Thomas Mance, the Executive Director, CEO, about the closing and the ancillary effects of that, and specifically how it relates to Dream Builders. I actually also, through Chief O'Hara's office, pulled the logic model that they've been using pending their agreement. It is in line with providing food, boxed food to families. Part of this logic model increase was to go from 200 boxes to 300 boxes, so there's a growth element. What Feeding Tampa Bay told me is that they've been trying to work with the partners around there. Their service level up in the north end of the city had dropped, and I'm doing rounding based on the call, about 300 feedings a day down to about 100, and a lot of those 100 were drive-throughs. So it could be a different clientele, but Feeding Tampa Bay assured me that they tried to work with the area partners that they already have to kind of close any gaps of what maybe Dream Builders may, or not Dream Builders, but what Trinity's closing would have caused. So, it's really, again, I don't know what the level of service demand is based on Trinity closing down, Dream Builders standing up with a request, and Feeding Tampa Bay putting the wraparound So, but again, this is gonna have to go through an agreement. It's gonna have to have a scope of work. It's gonna have to come back to council. So it's council's pleasure on,
Do you have any recommendations, though, based on the conversations you had? Should we increase the funding of one, or should we support Feeding Tampa Bay to work with all the neighborhood partners?
right now, based on the recommendation and talking to Feeding Tampa Bay, who is, again, already has an agreement in place and gets good funding, I would recommend that we go ahead and approve with this. Let us do the scope of work with Dream Builders. And then if we don't see the level of service, then we could come back to council and right-size it.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Vieira with a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Viera,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson. Hurtak.
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, council. And if I may,
Yes, sir,
Mr. Chair.
please turn on your microphone.
Sorry.
Go ahead, you're
Thanks, yes.
recognized.
And we can address this, I don't know if we're just dealing with the nonprofits now. The renewal fees or the fees at the Riverwalk, with the Riverwalk organization, I know we'd ask you all to take a look at that. And then later on, and I know, and I guess because we can't talk about this outside, Councilman Hurtak, I assume that you've been in contact with the Hart folks on the $150,000. Okay, good. I'll let you deal with that then, ma'am, since you took the leadership on this great issue. So when it comes to the Riverwalk, would this be the correct time to discuss the requested waiver and $50,000 in city fees for their signature events, Mr. Chair?
Well, before you make that, I was going to, I was looking at the unallocated funds. I've deducted the roughly 32.5 that we just motioned for your motion. It leaves us with about 55,000. I wanted to make a motion to increase the,
Don't spend all of it, please.
well, I'll just tell you what it is. But anyways, I was gonna increase the funding for the Friends of the Riverwalk from 35 on up. But if there's another option regarding the 50,000 and it can balance it out without having to use this money,
Can I ask you why you want to do that? We already gave them $35,000.
you're recognized, ma'am.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
thank
So
you, Chair, I appreciate it.
they've requested it. We really haven't formally supported them, and I think I trust them that when they say that they need these amount of funds in order to do the great work that they do for our city, I'll trust them in that regard. I understand the $35,000 that's been given. They're requesting more money, and I think it's a reasonable request given the great work that they do for our community. But, Mr. Chairman, if you wish to take the lead on that, I hereby...
No, I want to see what the different options are.
Yes, sir, but
Okay.
please, so I'll withdraw that, and I know, and you can do that, sir. That's all at this time. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the Friends of the Riverwalk, I guess, I guess it is the community's option to approach all of us and seek support. So they've already done that, and I requested $25,000. The mayor, I guess, added an additional 10 to the budget, and so I know that they came before us last week and said we want more funds, and this is their first year, and so if they presented something with all the details saying, hey, this is what we need and this is what we do, I appreciate their work, their great work on the Riverwalk. But the vetting has been done, and that's where the mayor landed as the District 5 representative. That's where I landed. I asked for $5,000 for other organizations and $20,000. So landing at 35, I think is very good to circle back, once the ask has been done, and to seek out additional council members to try to increase it again, I believe is just, I'm not going to call it inappropriate. It is what it is. But this social action fund has been an interesting document, because we have lots of organizations on here who've been supported for a very long time, and they don't have agreements. We're working on that, and I understand that. What I don't want is for organizations to get in the habit of feeling as though the city should be obligated to give their organization funding levels when there are other organizations out there that don't get anything. Absolutely $0 that have done amazing work. And so this is an opportunity for the Riverwalk to start with what we've recommended and leave it at that, not get the no and then go back around and seek out council members, to increase it again. And that's just not fair, because if that is the case, I can justify adding an additional $5,000 to the organizations that I only offered $5,000 to and requested that. And I do have one that I would like to add because we had the extra, the additional unallocated funds. And the one that I would like to add, and maybe some of you have heard of it, is the Brooks Charities, because I like the youth stuff. Keeping our kids off the street, reducing crime, that's what's important to me. And I would like to allocate $5,000 to the Brooks Charities in support of their Brooks Bunch program. And that's what I'm about. It's like we're going to help them with a program within the entity of what they do, not cover a mass amount of things, etc. And also, I would like to say this, is that, and Chief, you can speak on this, we already offer to a lot of nonprofits when we utilize our police staff, and we give things that aren't necessarily in a dollar amount to major events like, things that happen on the Riverwalk. Or can you speak on that? Maybe I'm not sounding it out thoroughly. Don't we give where you could tie a dollar amount to the services that we provide as a city to nonprofits already, like the Riverwalk?
Again, John Bennett, Chief of Staff. It's really a great segue question. So there's a monthly sponsorship meeting for special events, which is, I think, what you're referring to. And within those requests, there are certain fees within the code parameters that we can look at and work with nonprofits to help them get their event. And the historicals are presented to show that they're gaining ground on other funding resources. So we have these discussions. Quite often, we hold the line on hard costs. And the reason that we landed on the $35,000 for Friends of the Riverwalk, we were trying to make sure their hard costs were supported based on the data we have given. I will say that the Friends of the Riverwalk have presented a great scalable opportunity that we probably could look at during the special event case by case to see what the city could work with under co-sponsorship. But I would also offer to council that if there was a number in the unallocated space within this parameter of Social Action and Arts Fund, and you wanted to hold it for discretionary event use, when we are doing these events with nonprofits, and I can tell you, we have had to be a little challenging on startup nonprofits for very little money because we just can't do every single one of them, and we didn't have a flexible amount in here to help a run get off the ground that's contained in a park. I'm talking $3,000, $5,000 that we had to say no to. And if there was money for this on a case-by-case basis, aligned with our special events process, we could use that in a very judicious way to help some of these startups get going. We just don't have the flexibility because there's not a line item for that in the budget, if that makes any sense. And I know that's a compound answer to one question.
And thank you, Chief, I appreciate that. And just for full disclosure, after the budget meeting, the last time they did write, and my response, I just want to say this publicly, I responded to them that, I understand and appreciate, that you do need additional funds, but I asked the, staff for $25,000. The mayor came back at $35,000, and that's where it landed. And that I am okay with that, even if it is disagreeable to you. That is where I landed, and I did put that in writing to the Riverwalk. So I just want to say that publicly. And I also would like to get a second for my motion for $5,000 for Brooks Charities.
We have a motion from Councilmember Henderson, second from Councilmember Vieira. Roll call vote?
Can I speak to it?
Yes.
For the Brooks Bunch program.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Love Derek Brooks, love the thing that the charity's doing, but it's a very well-established charity, and I don't necessarily know if
We can do that well established.
well, that's what it's so.
With a whole bunch of
Well, that's
these.
what's so funny because
Yeah.
I've listened to you talk about these, and it seems almost contradictory.
Well, I'll be very plain. A minority charity that supports Black youth in this city. So if you want to break this list down like that,
Right, yeah,
then,
well, I mean,
then we
I-
won't have a whole lot of them on here.
But I think that's
So
that's what we should do. We should do that kind of.
You know what? Let's
action.
get the second on the $5,000.
But
That's what I say.
But I think we should.
Thank you.
Are you recognized?
Yeah.
Speaker, am I?
Go ahead, Councilman Clendenin, you're recognized.
I mean, I think that we could go through, and again, and I actually have agreed with some of the points that you made in the past. about some of these well-established charities, and is it really the city of Tampa's job to be putting in money for these well-funded, well-established charities? Or can that money be used for those startups or those incubator little projects, or those, like what we've done with Stepping Stones and some of these other organizations, where a little bit of money can go a long way? So, I mean, 'cause I look at some of these organizations and I think, why are we still funding these things? 'Cause I know they have endowments, and I know they've got contributions coming from all over the place. So I have agreed with the points that you've made. So I'm just reluctant to keep going down that slippery slope and adding to it. And it's nothing against Derek and the organization, and obviously a fine organization and well-respected in the community. I'm reluctant to go down that slippery slope, because I think we should be looking the exact other way of figuring out better ways with the limited resources the city has, better ways to spend it.
Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you. I'm inclined to support this, and because we have a workshop coming up that would ideally be working on next year's budget, and we could probably put some parameters on it there. And so I'm happy to support it this year and work on the parameters for future during the January workshop.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Councilmember Carlson.
Yeah, I'm okay supporting it this year. I think in the workshop and others, we need to work more closely with the chief of staff on the criteria that the city's been using, trying to look at the return on investment to the community, and as I said last week, some of these are kind of outsourced services, but we need to not support them because they're great organizations, because they probably all are, but we need to support them because they're doing something specific that moves the needle on what we want in the community. But one thing I want to reiterate that Councilmember Henderson said last time, and also briefly this time, is I really want to make sure that in the contracts there's a clause that says that they affirm that they understand that there's no guarantee that this will be renewed, and it's a one-time thing. Not that we'll go through wholesale and cut ones next year, but is that in the contract or not?
That was a motion.
I don't know if legal can speak to that. The only one I've seen of the modern era was through Carl Brody's office, so I don't know if Justin.
Once we're done with this motion, should we make another motion on that, or do you all, do you want to get?
I know it's loud and clear, and I know that the administration is intent on that very part, and of course, the budget has a macro safety net in that as well. If it's not funded, it's not funded, but I'll let legal speak to it specifically.
Yeah.
Justin
just-
Vasky, Legal Department.
Yes, sir.
I'm not aware of that provision in those agreements,
Okay.
but it wouldn't hurt for a motion to direct us. To
It was
I believe I
Councilmember
made it.
Henderson,
Just a
yeah,
moment.
it was her idea, so I'm not going to make a motion, but if she
We're gonna-
makes a motion, I'll support
That's
it.
great.
I
We have
believe a motion was already existing, though.
Well, let's do it just in case. So
No,
you have a
no, this is for the
motion.
5 grand.
You have a motion for the $5,000 for the Brooks organization. We have a second, Councilmember Vieira. Let's get a roll call vote.
Miranda,
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Clendenin,
With the understanding that we're going to workshop this in January 2025, as Councilwoman Hurtak said, I'll say yes.
Henderson,
Absolutely.
Vieira. Yes. And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Chair.
Motion
Yes,
carried
ma'am.
unanimously.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, I appreciate it, and I will settle down and follow the rules and respect the process. I believe a couple of months ago, I did make a motion that all of the Social Action Fund organizations be informed that it is not guaranteed that they would receive their funding on an annual basis.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. I'm
Can
going
you-
from memory, but in the letter that my office sent out to everyone.
Yeah, I requested a letter, thank
Yes,
you.
yes, ma'am. It's very clear that those parameters are in place. I don't know, and that's why I'll defer to legal, whether that has made it into the contract, but of course it will now. But it did make it into the letters and the information sent to those nonprofits.
Thank you.
Yes,
Councilmember
ma'am.
Hurtak.
Councilwoman Henderson, would you like to make a motion to add that to the contract? I
Let's do it
agree. I
just
think
in
that's a very,
Yeah.
so I will leave that to you to do if you'd
No,
like.
you can go ahead and
Okay.
do
Wait,
it.
Councilmember Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't spoken on this item, but let me just say this. This is not free money. Anytime we do expenditures, it's the public funds that we're giving away. So I agree with some of these things, but I really want to see some done where they're reported quarterly or whatever and meet their goals. If not, out. We cannot continue to do this on a yearly basis and have like I never asked for one, and I never will. But I say few, if none, here for Hispanics. And if you think I'm gonna lay down here and roll over, you're full of you know what. I'm not gonna continue with this unless there's equity, responsibility, and to the point of whatever the money they get, how they spend it, and where they spent to, and what percentage are they helping to make their goals. They gotta give you a goal, and they gotta reach that goal, whatever that goal may be. And I'm not here to tell you what to do. You guys know more about the goals and objectives than most people in this country.
Councilmember Henderson, do you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make it. I just want to comment on what Charlie said. The whole mind-blowing thing about this social action list is really, it has, and Dr. Chief Bennett and I had this conversation. He said, Councilwoman Henderson, you probably will be the one to help, clear this up. Because a lot of people have been on this list for a very long time, and we don't know how they got on the list. They just stay on the list. They get money year after year. It is ridiculous. And so you're right. The equity has not been there. That's why the funding levels that I asked for is reasonable. After a conversation with the mayor to say, look, we support. We don't overfund organizations. That's what we should do. This is just to say, hey, we can move a program along within your organization, but not your entire organization. That is what it should be for. And so there are dollar figures on here that probably equate to millions because they just live on the list and you don't come off the list. That's what seems so interesting. You make the list and you don't come off the list because no one will have the audacity to do that. It would have to take a vote up here to remove or reduce funding if they're not in compliance. So this is just one of those other things. But I will move the motion that organizations, all social action funding organizations, will be informed that this funding is for a fiscal year only and subject to non-renewal.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Miranda, Councilmember
Can I
Hurtak.
add an amendment
Sure.
that be included in a contract?
And be included in the agreement with all
Second to
organizations.
the addition.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, we have an acceptance of that addition. A roll call vote?
Carlson. Hurtak.
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Vieira. Miranda.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, any other motions before I go to public comment? Yes, Councilmember Hurtak.
Yes. So we had a conversation last budget workshop about the $1.5 million to Hart for Route 1. What was not included in that was the paratransit and the impacts of the pilot project. Paratransit, a federal government rule is that you can't charge any more than 2 times what it costs on a particular route. So that was not factored into the $1.5 million, and they did a impact study and found that the financial impact is $150,000. So I would like to increase that 1.5 million to 1.65 million and take that $150,000 out of the unassigned.
Second.
Okay.
We have a very quick second from Councilmember Clendenin. Is there any discussion on this? Councilmember Carlson, Councilmember Henderson, Councilmember Miranda.
Yeah, as I said before, I feel very strongly that we should not use city money to subsidize Hart. Hart was spun out 1979, early 80s with the city of Tampa lost some of the revenue source that went with it. It has its own revenue source. The leadership of Hart needs to step up and fund itself. It has the capacity to fund way more than the city could ever do. It needs to fix its problems, or we need to lobby the state. Another option is, I looked at the charter for Hart, City of Tampa can withdraw. We don't have to be a part of Hart. We can fund Hart. If we're gonna fund Hart, what the 1.5 million is gonna lead to is several years from now, it'll be 20, 30 million because the need is so great. Hart needs to step up and show leadership, but in the absence of that, we need to figure out, is the city of Tampa gonna be in charge of our own bus service? Are we gonna be providing big numbers? Then we should either reorganize Hart or we should step out and just fund them as an agency. This is a hybrid that is not gonna be sustainable. I'm worried about the precedent setting. However, I'm not gonna vote against paratransit, and I understand the issue because I've been briefed on it. If you're combining them, I'm voting for the 150, but I'm not voting for the 1.5. I think it's a horrible, horrible precedent. We're breaking down a wall that should not be broken down. It's not whether we're in favor of transit or in favor of supporting people. It is that an organization was set up with its own funding source, and the leadership there is not doing anything to fix their own problem. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson, Miranda Clendenin.
Yeah. Since we can't talk, offline, I don't understand. I agree with Councilman Carlson. I voted against the 1.5 million. I just feel as though, Route 1, understandably so, there are other routes. We could have chosen Nebraska for all that matters. We should not be in the business of funding HART when they are a separate entity. And so I'm not going to support it for that reason. Even the $150,000, I understand it, but it's just that we should not be in that business. HART needs to find a way to survive on their own. I'm saying that as a board member of HART, as well as a member of this Tampa City Council. We are opening up a can of worms. Also, there's the need-based analysis of that already exists. HART is given, and I don't even know if this actually matters when it comes to Route 1 or this $150,000, so maybe I should leave it alone. But, HART provides discounts to residents who have a great need to ride at a reduced rate. Students also ride at a reduced rate. And so that already exists. Picking that corridor for $1.5 million can't be justified when there are other routes that have needs as well. So it's just, we're opening up a can of worms, and that's the reason why I can't support it.
Councilman Miranda Clendenin.
I don't know what I can add that hasn't been said. I mean, I'm not trying to not help someone, but that route is a route that I assume is one of the highest riderships. So is it the highest ridership that people are helped, or the highest ridership that they don't need the help? Who is riding the bus? What percent of them are on half fares, no fares at all? What we're doing here is giving $1.5 million to something that we don't have all the information on. And on Councilwoman Henderson's speech, she said that what routes, I can tell you, I don't know how the population has shifted, but I can tell you that that route that goes through Ybor City, Nebraska Avenue, all the way to East Tampa would have equal to or greater than the need that we have in this route. However, that being said, if you really want to lift up somebody, you go to the area where everyone can ride the bus that lives there that can't afford it now. And then you have your rideability and your sustainability for that people to get to work or whatever they want to do, go shopping or go to the store or whatever. But I'm not one to say yes or no without facts, and therefore I'm caught in the middle. I got to say no. Thank you.
Councilman Clendenin.
Yeah, absolutely, everything we've heard intellectually is true, but it's missing a big component, and I probably should defer to Councilwoman Hurtek to expand upon it. But the way I look at this isn't about like providing free bus fare for people riding any one particular route. It's not about a perpetuated program of trying to take over HART, although I think that's something we should discuss at some future date because clearly they're failing in their mission. But as far as the city's involvement in mass transit, which we already do to a degree with the streetcar system, but this is an experiment, and how it was presented to me and why I'm on board. This is, sometimes you just have to take that leap of faith to say, okay, if let's use the streetcar as an example. When we went fare free on that streetcar, we saw that all of a sudden the ridership just skyrocketed and it became a proven concept, so that we can look to expand that concept in other forms of transportation, not just streetcar expansion, but other forms of transportation, because we now have seen, because we took that leap of faith, we can see that we have a model that we can go on. So what Councilman Hurtek proposed is, let's take this established route that we're looking at as a BRT, which would be very costly to implement. So let's look at this route. Let's try this experiment for a set period of time, and will cost us X amount of dollars. Let's see what the results are. This is, I don't think one time, as Councilman Hurtak said, that gonna come back to us in perpetuity to fund this. She's looked for this is an experiment. We're looking to see how this would be received, how it'll impact the numbers, and if we can prove the concept that in this particular corridor is viable for more of an investment. And that's why I am taking that step to say yes on it, because I think it is in the bigger picture, it's not as much as what, we're talking huge sums of money to invest in other types of mass transit, or even the BRT of, creating stations and all the investments. 95 million. 95 million. So before we spend almost $100 million, in today's money, by the way, by the time we get there, it's gonna be more. So before we spend that much money, let's try this out and see, because you know what? We may be back here in 12 months and say, you know what? It didn't work. And guess what? We just saved $94 million. So let's take the leap of faith. Let's try it and move forward.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna, before I go to Councilman Vieira, then Councilman Hurtak, I'm gonna support this 110%. And as things have already been mentioned, when the streetcar became fare-free, we saw a huge increase in ridership. Not just because it was free, but more people saw the opportunity to use it, and more people are using it. I think if we go back to some kind of fare for the streetcar, I think people, now that they see how it works, people that have not used it before, I think it'll still be as successful, and we'll see those numbers going up. In regards to the bus, a 1.650 total investment, $1 million investment here, will allow us the opportunity to get the data that we need. We'll see increase in ridership. I think it'll mimic, maybe not mirror exactly, but it'll mimic what happened on the streetcar. More people will ride it. It will bring more awareness. It allows us to get the data that we need and look at further investments if it's successful in the future. When I first started in politics, it was about high-speed rail money. We got new leadership at the state level, and that money was turned away. When it was initiatives on the ballot, it either failed or it was found unconstitutional. It seems like any time the people speak, or any time we want to move forward with some kind of worthy investment in transit, it gets shut down. Right. I've been to places all over the world. The only place I've ever had to rent a car is Los Angeles. If you've gone to Los Angeles, you need a car. But in every other place, I've used transit. I flew to Dallas for one day, and for $6 got a DART pass. And I saw all of the city on a Sunday. I went there to see how it worked, and I go, wow, but they have $1 billion budget. Hart has 10% of that. I think it's up to us in our capacity as a city council, and I understand the argument, Hart needs to fund itself, but we've tried other ways. At the ballot box, at the state level, at the federal level, it all gets shut down, and we're never going to move forward with trying to improve our transportation needs if we don't even have the will to try. So I think this investment, yes, it's a lot of money. It's a small amount in the bigger scheme of things, but it will give us invaluable data that we can use in the future. Councilmember Vieira, Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And by the way, Justin Willis with Hart is available online. He's not feeling well, but he is available for any questions that anybody may have. I again, like I did last time, I commend Councilwoman Hurtak for her leadership on this. I'm glad to vote yes on this 100%. I remember, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but there's a line by Franklin Delano Roosevelt where he said something to the effect of, better a government I'm going to mispronounce, occasionally makes mistakes rather than a government that's stuck in its own ice-cold indifference, right? We have to go forward and try something on mass transit, as I'll talk about. I'm glad to say yes. This is one of the most consequential mass transit votes that we're having here in Tampa City Council. We passed this. It passed a couple of weeks ago when Councilwoman Hurtak brought it up. I'm glad it passed. We're over here supplementing it for about $150,000 for paratransit. I'm glad this passed. This is the right thing to do. Again, this helps people where they are. A lot of times here in City Council and CRA, we deal with things that don't help people who take the bus, who don't help people who work 40, 50 hours a week, come home to take care of their families, and after they pay taxes and God knows what else, they're still living in poverty in spite of working full time. Hart and funding Hart like this makes life easier for people who need to have an easier life because they work like hell just to try to get dignity. And that's what this is all about. When it comes to issues involving mass transit in Hillsborough County, the history of this is very, very clear. I've been on the HART board for about 3 years. I take a look, before I joined in 2018, we had the All for Transportation penny sales tax passed almost 60% in Hillsborough County. Almost 60% was ultimately struck down in court. That would have funded HART tremendously. I think it was about $140 million a year, if I recall. That would have funded HART. You fast forward then 2020, people go, do we do a replacement penny sales tax? People decided not in the midst of COVID. 2022, we do another All for Transportation tax. Gets struck down into circuit court before we can even fund it. And yet, in the middle of an anti-tax red wave, even though this tax was struck down into court, it almost passed. Half a point. And by the way, on both of them, I was proud to endorse them, because even before I joined the HART board, those are the ways in which we fund HART. And in the absence of these larger initiatives that will come back, and when they come back, I hope that we all support them, right? We have to do things like this to meet people where they are 110%. You know, the HART board, I've been the chairman of the HART board for about 1.5 years. And when folks started talking about that, somebody told me, you sure you want to be the chair? That's about as thankless as all, right? Being on the HART board for some folks is thankless, right? A lot of us, most of us serve on a city board in our capacity as city officials. Some of them are easier, some of them are harder. I joke about my friends on the TPO board. That's a very difficult board. HART is always a very difficult board. Why? Because the Tampa Bay region is one of the worst regions when it comes per capita to funding of transit. The leadership in whether it's Hillsborough County, City of Tampa, in the Tampa Bay area continues to either you try and something gets struck down in the courts, or we don't move the ball forward. Remember in 2016 with the half a penny sales tax, again, we either fail or we don't do what we should do. This is an opportunity for us to do what we should do on Route 1. As Councilman Clendenin said, a very, very consequential route, right? A very, very consequential route because it runs to USF. It helps, and it takes the city of Tampa to say that even though mass transit may have fallen out of favor in Florida because of changing political winds, here in the city of Tampa, and I believe in Hillsborough County, it is something that is still in political favor. I remember in New Tampa, where I live, 33647, almost about 3 in 5 people in the suburbs said, please raise my taxes because we need better roads, we need better mass transit, et cetera. That's what this comes down to. So again, I thank Councilwoman Hurtak for her leadership on this. I'm glad this passed last time. It's going to go forward today, and it's going to be a real movement forward for helping people who need help, who take the HART bus.
Councilman
Thank you.
Hurtak.
Thank you. I'm just disappointed to hear people talk about HART as failing its mission, because it's not. It's doing the best it can with the money it has. And they actually did a study in the legislature, and the legislature said they're doing amazing work for the money they have. The only reason they're failing in their mission is because we're requiring them to have their hands and feet behind their back because they don't have the funding they need to be more successful. And that's what this is, an opportunity for both HART and the city to make things better. For me, this is also an affordable housing issue. The cost of a car is about $1,000 a month between car payments, between gas, between insurance. And and maintenance, I mean, everybody's had that maintenance problem. So if you take away that $1,000, that's $1,000 more you can put toward affordable housing, to your housing. You can afford to live closer to a bus line. You can afford to live closer to housing, or rather to your job. So, and in fact, very interestingly enough, today in the Axios newsletter, they talked about a study that just said that the majority of Tampa Bay renters are spending 50% or more of their income on rent. And that makes our community rent burdened. So we've worked really hard on housing issues and how to help people with their housing. Well, we only have so much money we can put toward housing. And the amount that we can put toward housing is helping a finite number of people. And it's been successful. Thankfully, we still have that $10.7 million that we're putting into the budget this year, but it's only can help a finite number of people. This $1.65 million will be able to help countless more because they will be able to use the bus. As far as funding goes, too, I don't know if you all read the news today, but I also saw that the county is looking to take all of its affordable housing funding, $10 million, and take it out of affordable housing. So the county is just simply not a place that we can go for funding right now. It is up to us. It is up to us to give it a try. Right now, the population that touches Route 1 is 32,400 people within a quarter mile, and that is absolutely amazing. The amount of people who don't own a car on that route is 18%. So I'm very excited. This is a 22-mile round trip route, and I'm really excited to see what happens and what we can do with this. And I want to thank council members for support, and I want to thank the public for coming out and just advocating for transit. We've got to start somewhere, and this is the place to begin.
Make your motion.
I make a motion to move the 100, and I'll restate the motion because I believe I got a second, was to add $150,000. Was that the motion I made?
Yes.
To add $150,000 to the current 1.5?
We have a motion, but who was the second? Councilman Clinton?
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
Discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, of the 32,000 that ride this route, some of them probably are already supplemented to ride it at little to no cost to them. We have that data?
Well, it's not the people that ride the route. That's just the population that's within a quarter mile of the route.
Okay, so the people that currently ride the route, do we know if some of them are being supplemented to ride it for free or not because of their status, their financial status?
No, I don't know.
But, okay, well, you know what?
Just-
Go ahead.
Sir, are you finished, ma'am?
Yeah, it was a question for us to talk up here.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, well, if we call upon him, Councilmember Clendenin.
Just remember, again, this is more about a test of viability of this route, not necessarily what the need. It's a test of will this route work as a BRT? Will when we do this spare free, what will happen with ridership numbers? So if you think of it, veer off from the need-based, because we could have a whole nother discussion about that and routes, but this is just a viability test of what this route was going to look like. And I say we call this question.
Councilmember Carlson, I got a question to call here. Is there a second to call the question? Second, Councilman Beer, all in favor? Aye. All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Hurtak, second Councilmember Clendenin, roll call vote.
I thought the motion was to call the question.
The motion was to call the question.
Yeah, no,
And
and I went right to your motion.
Oh.
Now we're going to have the roll call.
We have a motion from Hurtak, second Councilman Clendenin. This is for her actual motion.
Hurtak,
Yes.
Clendenin,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes,
Vieira,
Yes.
Miranda, Carlson,
this is for the question.
As I said earlier, I'm voting.
This is to vote for, this is for the motion?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry, just no for me.
Go ahead.
As I said earlier, I'm voting for the paratrans part, but not the 1.5. This is to add, but what she said is she's adding
Adding the
150,000.
150.
So I'm voting for that, but I still don't support the 1.5.
and Maniscalco.
Yes.
So, yeah,
5 to
you're
2.
going to announce the motion, the results, because I was confused by Councilmember Carlson. There wasn't the motion really to amend, it was just part of the.
This is
original
to
motion.
add 150,000.
Just
This
to
is a
add the
separate item.
150,000.
Yes.
Yeah, we already voted.
All right, please read the results.
Motion carried with Henderson and Miranda voting no.
Okay. All right, any other motions from council? If not, I'm going to go to public comment. Councilmember Carlson?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing in response. HART has its own ability to tax the public. The HART board can start the process. It's a complicated process, but the HART board can start the process to tax itself. At the end of this pilot project, the city of Tampa doesn't have the money to continue this and put in all these other services. If this was just an amount of money to pay for bus passes for people who can't afford them or people who are disabled, I would be in favor of that because it provides the equity that Councilmember Henderson said. But my problem is that HART still a year from now is going to have the same tough decision they have now, is they've got to figure out how to fund themselves, and they need to do the tough work and solve their own problem.
Thank you very much. We have one registered speaker for public comment. Is that individual on? And what is that person's name? All right, Robin Tilton, if you're on, please state your name. You'll have 3 minutes. This is for general public comment regarding the budget or the millage rate and the CIP. Robin, if you're on, please state your name.
Robin Tilton, please unmute yourself.
All right. We see you, but we can't hear you. No. Is she muted or we have her muted on our end? It says you're muted on your end. Nope, not yet. All right, we're going to come back to you in a few minutes. We're going to go to the folks in the room. All right, so if you're here to speak for public comment, please come up, state your name. You will have 3 minutes. Hello, please state your name.
Dana Lazarus.
Go ahead.
I'm with Transit Now Tampa Bay and YIMBY Tampa, here to speak in support of affordable housing and public transit. Tampa's 2025 budget is titled A Commitment to Community Values. The proposed budget is intended to reflect the shared beliefs and aspirations of our residents in building a Tampa that is prosperous, sustainable, and affordable. A direct quote from Mayor Jane Castor. It's very interesting to me because as an AICP certified urban and regional planner with a master's in planning, the reason I became so interested in a topic as dry as public transit, and the reason I focused my studies on equity and sustainability in transportation planning is because public transit sits at the intersection of economic justice, racial justice, environmental justice, and more. Public transit will make Tampa more prosperous, sustainable, and affordable. The 5 key strategies for our budget include: 1, maintaining and improving infrastructure. Public transit is infrastructure. Strengthening services for residents. Public transit is one of the most important services provided by and within the city. 3, enhancing workforce development. Public transit is absolutely key to ensuring workers of all incomes can access their jobs. 4, improving of housing affordability, which can also be addressed through enhanced access and more affordable mobility options. And 5, focusing on sustainability and resilience. In 2017, the transportation sector, specifically cars and light trucks, surpassed the energy production sector as the top greenhouse gas polluter contributing to climate change in America.
How to unmute.
Wait, Robin, we can hear you. Don't say anything. I'm going to come to you after.
Thank you so much to the 4 council members who voted to move the Route 1 Fare Free pilot project forward. Thank you, Alan Clendenin, Guido Maniscalco, Luis Vieira, and Lynn Hertak. You are making history with this project. With this project, we will help thousands of Tampa residents and workers on day 1 who could really use a little relief in the cost of their daily commute. Thank you, thank you. I also want to make very clear that Route 1 was chosen for several very important reasons. In particular, one of the city's top priority transportation projects, the Hart Arterial Bus Rapid Transit Project on Florida Avenue, actually is Route 1 repurposed. An immense amount of time, money, and effort has already gone into studying that project since 2019. But a politically driven new state law that went into effect this year, HB 1301, maliciously changed the rules for repurposing a lane, intentionally making it more difficult to implement dedicated lane transit projects. If we make Route 1 fare free, we may actually be able to hit the new ridership threshold of 6,000 riders on opening day, necessary for that project to finally move forward. These are a few of the reasons why we have sent a total of 532 emails to you guys. You each should have received around 95 emails. There's also been at least 6 news stories highlighting this project. The word is out, and the people who care about this are very excited and so proud. This project is in the spotlight, and the good old bus system may finally start to receive the respect and attention it deserves. Why not fund the bus? Funding the bus is, and of itself, funding social equity. As a city, we can, we should, and we will. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Robin Tilton, I know you're unmuted. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Robin Tilton. I want to talk to you about, you've been talking about different organizations that the city supports. And this evening, I'd like to talk to you about any potential fiduciary partnerships you may have with Tampa General Hospital and their foundation. I had a recent experience there in the ER downtown that I think you should be aware of when you consider these potential partnerships. They currently in the ER have cots lined head to head, down, up and down hallways. And they are giving people servants' bells to ring the nurses. It's been a nightmare. Restrooms are few and far in between, and the patients are always having to stand in line. I'm not saying this to complain. I'm saying this to make you aware, and hopefully that you can use some of your influence in an effort to make these changes that need to be made. It was my understanding from several staff members that a building was demolished and they have now put these 100 beds into the ER downtown. I have to tell you, it's a fire hazard, it's a health hazard. I was there with a cardiac patient. I don't know how they would have known it was him ringing the servants' bell. So I will say the staff works exceptionally hard, so I would not ding Tampa General for their staff. They were awesome. So, but their feedback was overwhelmingly that this is their norm. So I think Tampa citizens deserve humane treatment, and this is not humane. So if you are intending to partner with this organization, please keep this in mind, and at that time, use whatever influence you have to please make good, healthy changes in this situation.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Morales, please state your name.
Tatiana Morales, chapter co-lead of YIMBY Tampa. I actually wanted to start referencing some of the weather we had for the last month. In the last month, we've had some of the heaviest rain, some of the most dangerous conditions we've had, and there's a pretty obvious reason for that: climate change. When our city, for a very long time, set its development pattern to be car-centric and sprawled out, it set us into a death path where the average Tampa resident and nearly half the emissions of Tampa's greenhouse emissions are related to transportation, the way people get around. Saying an investment and saying we're investing in transit isn't saying, oh, HART isn't doing well enough, HART doesn't need to fix itself, all these other complaints that people on the board should be able to raise to the HART leaders themselves and not to the community that's just begging for an opportunity. And I think it's really important that as Tampa grows to almost 500,000 people, we actually look at our constituents and say, hey, we hear you when we send 511 emails saying, hey, we want a better city. We want to take a chance on transportation. Because even with the failures of AFT, the community has said over hundreds of thousands of people have said they want better. And Route 1 sets us up for federal funding. It gives people a chance to ride it. I actually, when I didn't have a car and lived at USF, would ride Route 1 to the transit station and then ride it and take the transit station bus to Miami. So there are people that use it that really do need those resources and need that investment. I also want to talk about affordable housing. Because when I went around the bus stops, when I actually went on Route 1 for this last 2 weeks, I've been talking over and over again to riders. And what I noticed the most was our homeless residents that ride the bus. And I think a lot of people don't like to look at them, don't like to acknowledge that they're real, but our housing crisis is getting worse and getting older. I was talking to seniors that could barely walk out with a cane that were riding the bus because they didn't have access to a house or AC. And those seniors ride the bus every day to Metropolitan Ministries begging for resources and housing. And as the county strips $10 million away from the Hope Fund, we have to look at the city and say, hey, most of the problem, most of the people, the urban core is our city. The future of what happens is our city. There's a reason that companies like major Fortune 500 companies are going to St. Petersburg because they invested in their BRT. They've taken that leap and it shows. The BRT is beautiful. And when we rested in Route 1, I think to some people it seems like the rich people only live there, but I know many, many people that live along Route 1 that want to take the bus, that want to take that leap into the community. And when we make this investment, it is just not, we're giving money for the hope that HART gets better. We're looking at what the rest of the country does, where the communities invest, and they say that the bus is a meanwhile investment. And I also want to talk about, as our community grows, traffic is only going to get worse. There's so much emphasis on the infrastructure of our city, of the streets, but the infrastructure of our city is the people, how they get around, how they get to work, how we uplift them from poverty. Because there are mayors in our own country that have said, you know, the way I want to lift people from poverty, I want to make their routes better. I want to get them faster and more efficiently to where they need to go. And this investment, which the HART board supported, is the investment that we need to make moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, yes, come on up, please state your name.
Hi, my name is Adria Curioso. I'm just a concerned Tampa citizen. I'm not, very well researched in statistics or whatever like that, but I can tell you that I've lived here my entire life, and I've seen traffic go from just bad to worse this entire time. And I think it's really interesting how you all seem to look at this issue as if it doesn't affect you at all, because you don't ride the bus, but you are on the road. If you don't live in this building, you commuted to get here. And everybody who rides the road has to share it. Your transit is going to affect your life, whether you are on the bus or in a car next to the bus. And funding transit and making it more accessible to people would help the car riders who are on the road and have to share it with other people. If transit were more accessible to everyone, if public transit were more accessible to everyone, then that could give people opportunities to not have to use their cars constantly. And every time you complain about traffic and everything like that, you have to understand you are the traffic. Reducing traffic means giving people other options that aren't just single car rider. And you have so much space around you and you're just taking it up with your car. Getting people more compact would be great for everyone on the road. And Ms. Henderson, you talked about how you are trying to fund programs that are helping our youth keep off the streets and everything like that. It would be really great if kids could ride the bus because they don't have licenses and to get to these community centers that you want them to get to. It's an issue that affects everyone who has to get anywhere from point A to point B in the city. And everything in the city is so spread out, you cannot escape having to use the road in some capacity for some purpose. There's also tourists. We have so many people who we want to bring into Tampa to bring their business here, who then have to come in and either rent a car or just figure out how to get rides from other people or anything like that. But very often they want to figure out how to get from point A to point B in the most cost-effective way possible. They're here on a trip or something like that. If they don't have feasible public transit options, then we have to let them have a license. And just every time you've complained about people who don't know how to drive in Tampa, that's probably someone who doesn't know Tampa. That's someone who doesn't understand our roads and how they work and how our people operate and live. So if we want tourists to come here, we need to make it more accessible to tourists too. And yes, the funding seems like a big number or anything like that, but the problem also is if we don't pay for it in funding, giving people options, we're gonna pay for it with traffic accidents. We're gonna pay for it with just problems that are gonna pop up further down the line because you just leave it to everybody's individual responsibility to just figure it out. We're gonna have more issues just because it's all individualized, but that's all I got.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, sir? Please state your name.
This is Ergin Tek. I'm here as a private citizen of Tampa Bay, and some of you probably know me. I'm just asking Ms. Hurtek, thank you for her to bring this on the floor to be heard over here. I think she didn't ask for enough money. She should ask for full $95 million from City of Tampa. Because City of Tampa has so much problems that most of those problems has something to do with transportation. When you go around town, around the country, when you go to any other state, we are the worst in the state of Florida, I would say maybe the whole country. So who's to blame for this? If one of you don't take this on and continue with it and fix it once for all, who's going to do it? So we ask you to actually give her the whole $95 million. You have enough money in the budget. You can cut from somewhere else. Because in this, since we are the worst, and you are so concerned about $150,000, think about how many problems you're going to solve at one time. Now, if it was up to me, I would make public transportation free for everyone, used to everyone free, not a penny. Because when you do it for free, you will take so many cars off the road. You're going to improve environment. You're going to reduce the traffic. You're going to have a lot of people who can't really afford to live here. They've been priced out of this town. The tax has gone up so high, property tax, property insurance. I know people who own a house, they can't live in their own house. So now, who is to blame? Who is responsible for this? All the money this town generates, whether it's Hillsborough County or City of Tampa, goes to these boards, and the money has been allocated to places that don't really matter, don't fix any problem. It fixes one problem, and that's it. This is the most important problem we have in this town, transportation. She said free one route. Maybe you should charge $1 because maybe you can't afford free. Free doesn't sound right. Make it $1 for every person and do it through all routes. So now, this is my personal calculation. If you do it for free or just charge $1, I promise you, any one of you can go take 1 week worth of survey. Most of the buses goes empty. Empty. Do you know why? $5 is too much for someone. They get stuck in their house, they don't go anywhere. So if you make $1 rides, you're gonna have those empty seats full, and the money that's gonna come in as a revenue that's gonna be generated, most probably will pay for those empty seats, will probably generate the same amount of money that it generates today. So please support it, and if you can shave off out of $2.5 billion almost budget for this City of Tampa budgets, you should probably shave off half of $95 billion. Give it to her, make bus free for everyone, or just charge $1 just to help the cost. Please make the bathrooms in downtown available for all the homeless and also for people who use the buses.
Thank you very much, sir.
So,
Thank you, sir.
you're welcome.
All right, next speaker. Yes, sir, please state your name.
Hi, I'm Christopher Fowler. I'm still getting used to all the civic stuff. I'm still learning, but I do know, some things. I know that I work down at a elementary school, and I go to college, and both of those places I have to drive to, and every single day, I take my car out, I drive down there, I add to the traffic, and I sit miserable in my car for a half hour getting down there and an hour going down to my college, right? And I wish I could take the bus. I really want to. I want to sit in there, I want to study on my phone instead of staring at traffic every day. But I can't, because the time it takes compared to my car is just terrible. I checked my phone this morning to see how long it would take for me to take public transit, and it was, I think, over twice as long, I think almost 3 times as long, actually, to take a bus than it was to just drive my car. And included in that was a, 11-minute Uber drive that I would have to take to get to any place that I could get to a bus. I just hate having to waste my time every day and know if people are wasting their time to adding to the traffic, adding to the environmental costs like the ladies earlier mentioned, every single day. And I just wish that there was something that we could do here to, alleviate this problem of this terrible traffic problem, this transportation problem that we're obviously having, that people are obviously unhappy with. And just get where I need to go. That's pretty much it. I just really want to get places, not waste my time, and enjoy the ride, Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, ma'am. Please state your name.
Good evening, Keela McCaskill. A commitment to community values. I'm trying to understand who. Community's made up of people, and whose values, because as I look through the budget and I look through some of that, with homelessness being a crime in less than 13 days, and housing being a human right, where in this budget are we addressing that? Because it becomes the law, that it's a crime. I haven't heard not one robust, energetic discussion as to how we're gonna deal with that. Because it's gonna affect me now that I've moved to East Tampa. They're sleeping on my sidewalk in the front of my house, and I'm not calling to say anything because it's against the law to sleep, I guess, in public places, so they find in places they can hide and sleep. So I want to hear the discussions on where in this budget are we addressing that. Seems to be somewhat of a, reluctant, and I get the questions that you have regarding transportation, but I'm in full support of that, because when I grew up over in West Tampa, I wanted a job to be a credit analyst all the way out by the airport. My mom didn't have a car. My dad didn't have a car. I had to figure it out, and it was the bus line that prepared me for a career to go into banking, underwriting, and I made 6 figures before I was 30 because of that bus route and that opportunity to get out there and become in the lending institution. So I totally support that. The other thing I want to say is the social justice or social action programs, grants, whatever that is that the city offers. I'd love to know how you get access to that, because I have an organization that's definitely moving the needle, definitely serving your constituents, and I never knew that you could be on a list and receive grants from the city. I love your support to help the people that support you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you very much. Next speaker, please state your name.
Connie Burton. What we're experiencing now is the domino effect. Because once upon a time, bus ridership used to be up. People had jobs I can only talk about within the African community. That was our way of getting to and fro, wherever we needed to go, to church, to work, to play, to have fun. It was always the bus. But you know what happened? Gentrify the community and see what you get. I think the only honest thing that I heard from this whole heart thing is that you are hoping you can attract the USF crowd. I don't think it's gonna happen, but the numbers prove itself to be. But I need the telephone number of who can I call to ensure that on your budget you have put in there how you gonna deal with poverty. How you gonna deal with slum? How you gonna deal with blight? How you gonna deal with youth unemployment? How you gonna do that? How are we gonna prepare this city for returning citizens and an effective apprentice program? Where's that discussion? You're talking about pretty objects and art, fine, but we cannot be ignored. Some of you guys have been sitting up there and have run turns after turns, moved seats around. In fact, I would feel somewhat embarrassed if I was leading on the heart board and had to come to this impoverished city knowing that there are so many other needs that need to be done. But we come up here week after week, asking for things inside, in particular, East Tampa, that has been established since 1911. And you know what? We are still looking at the same buildings. We are still looking at a field of hopelessness until it is your pet project that you want to do. So no, we want to make sure, because we plan on coming back in 2025, to ensure that homes that are being built in our community, that if developers don't do it, you have some courage to do it. It's not because you have an idea that you want to endorse your pet projects. Like I heard week before last, that if you're at the Stratz Center and then those students over there need special housing, but we got a serious housing crisis in the African community. We want it addressed. We want to make sure that the East Tampa Youth League have resources there. We want to make sure that blight, slum, and poverty is addressed in this budget, because you got too many zeros around a $1.something trillion budget, and we are still acting as if we're living in 1960. It is unacceptable.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. Yes, ma'am, please state your name.
Good evening, Stephanie Pointer. You know, last year we fought for paving, we fought for housing, we fought for 30 firemen, we fought for 30 police officers. And, you know, and that was big stinking money. That was no joke. Thousands and thousands, millions and millions of dollars. We had money that was hidden in pockets and under rocks and shells, or wherever you want to say it. But that was big money. This is the second night that I've sat here and listened to you guys argue over less than $5 million. Less than 1% of the budget. I am just dumbfounded at the discussion that has went on. We still don't have Fire Station 24. We still don't have our 30 firefighters because the grant was turned down last year. We still don't have our fire maintenance. Now, and it's funny how things come before the budget, and then like in the spring we heard about Fair Oaks. You know, however you might feel about it, it's still a lot of money that wasn't in the budget at the beginning. And so this year we hear about a forensics lab a month after the Riverwalk comes up. So now we're up to another, I'm sorry, Mr. Perry reminded me at the budget meeting last week that it's not $40 million for that forensic lab. It will be $48 million. On top of the fact that Hannah Street downstairs is almost empty. Drive by there at night and you can see it's not even finished downstairs. Have we paid for all of it if it's not finished? I'm just saying, why aren't we putting a forensics lab in the downstairs of Hannah Street if it's freaking empty? This bus discussion, it makes me I want to sit down and cry about it. I rode the bus when I went to college. Getting people on the bus, it's not just about getting poor people on the bus, because if only poor people are on the bus, you're not going to see any more people on it than you see on it now. It's getting everybody on the bus. It's getting kids on the bus. It's getting schools handing out bus tickets to get kids home from after-school activities. But we have to make this jump in the swimming pool. You're never going to get wet if you don't jump in. And we're never going to have public transit if you don't make the commitment. But I can't believe that I feel like I'm at Groundhog Day, that we had the same exact discussions 2 weeks ago. The exact same discussions, the same arguments, the same everything. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Frankly, I'm kind of, I don't know whether I'm miffed or disappointed or just, maybe I should just go home. That's probably the best thing for me to do.
Thank you very much. Next speaker. Is there anybody else that's going to be speaking? If not, Ms. Lockett will be the last speaker. Yes, ma'am, please state your name, even though I just said it.
Robin Lockett. I came here prepared for a speech, but I appreciate the votes around the free ridership with Heartline, Route 1. I think it's very important that we, as has been said, we at least try it, because it does wrap itself around affordability, housing, and so forth. With this, you know, the average person, to my understanding, would save $80 a month, right? That can help with the light bill. TECO is now trying to increase the light bill 11.5%. Florida Rising is suing TECO on behalf of that. So we have a lawsuit with them to stop the rate hike. But that will help, right? What was concerning to me, so I appreciate you guys voting for it and pushing it forward. The social justice pot of money, I think that, you know, one thing with what the county is doing is they're doing it wrong, but they're taking the leap of doing it, right? Is looking at all of these agencies that get money from the municipality and really iteming whether they are doing what they're saying they're going to do. I think the city has to take a real look at it. No one should automatically be renewed. If they're saying they're supposed to do A, B, C, then they need to be held accountable with taxpayer money. That's the key to it. It's taxpayer money. If Friends of Riverwalk initially asked for $35,000, I'm thinking, and come back for more, no, you were approved for $35,000. That other $15,000 that y'all were willing to give it to somebody else, since you were willing to give it to them. But you have to be good stewardships with taxpayer money and hold them accountable. So I wanted to say I appreciate you guys in regards to voting passing this ridership amount and for people to ride free. Busing system is the busing system. I rode the bus in my 20s, which was a lot of years ago, and I caught 4 buses to work and still walked to the Howard Franklin. And I guarantee you that same route is no different now. So it will help people, and it would increase the ridership. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. That is it for public comment, because I see no one else. All right. We go now to another round of council comments or questions if you wish to do so. If not, is there anything else to add? If not, oh, there he is, Councilmember Clendenin.
Did you make the motion to go to 50 for the or to waive the fees for the Riverwalk?
No motion was made regarding the Riverwalk. Councilmember Vieira, you had brought it up, but I didn't make any motion to shift any money around. The question was to the Chief of Staff. Regarding the Riverwalk and the $50,000 in waivers regarding events, and you had mentioned something about when they have special events, we can take it on a case-by-case basis. Did you say something of that nature?
So each special event, John Bennett, Chief of Staff, comes through the Special Events Committee, and there's opportunities in each one of those cases to, within the code parameters, to support in-kind scenarios. So we could look at them case by case, but again, they did do a decent job giving us a scalable understanding of their business and supporting activation of the Riverwalk. So that's really what we would have to work with beyond the 35,000.
So you have the data from the Friends of the Riverwalk, as you just mentioned, regarding events, and then you would take it one by one from there.
We would, and again, it's got to come from somewhere, so at that point, that's why I was kind of teasing in the idea is that certain new events, we don't have a pot for that, and there's a lot of startup scenarios. Now, I realize Friends of Riverwalk events have been around a little bit, but that's really what happens through the special event committee process, is that everybody who's a stakeholder on that committee, again, backstopped with the code, has opportunities to do some in-kind work to support the event. So we obviously know the Riverwalk is a connector to a lot of other events, and it's a great activation for the arts and all those things. So, again, we understand the gap between their request and what has been approved inside the Social Action and Arts Fund.
Councilmember Clendenin.
Yeah, I think this will be a little bit more clear in our next budget cycle when we divide these groups from social action to economic development. Because I think clearly when we're talking about the Riverwalk, we're talking more about economic development. And I was intrigued when you said that they made the case for a business model case for the increased funding. And that's kind of what my observation is. And I'm talking about other ideas of economic development and activating the Riverwalk, is what vehicle to use that. I think Councilman Carlson's hit on this, is that they're providing these organizations to provide a service in lieu of what the city would be providing, so something that the city's not capable of doing. Like one of those things that I've been actively been an advocate for is improving the opportunity for vending people to be able to grab a slice of pizza or grab a Coke somewhere along in our food and beverage deserts along this area. But it's not something necessarily the city would be able to maintain or should maintain, but Friends of the Riverwalk maybe be able to do something like that. So I think that's why I'm intrigued by the idea of helping them out, get beyond where they are right now into becoming more of a viable organization to provide that economic development. So if there was a proposal for either one, I think you mentioned something about waiving some of the fees to be able to get them to that level, or to be able to supplement their budget so they get that level, I'd be willing to go with you on that.
Well, we also, you've already said it all, Chief. There is a plan in place. We have a path to look forward to, but also we have the workshop coming up January 30th. Because I could say, I'll make a motion to increase the funding, but is it going to be as impactful, or do we have to do that if we're looking at, support that the city can offer on case-by-case upcoming event? Because there are plenty of events on the Riverwalk. It's not just a once-a-year thing. There's a lot of opportunity for us to look at, assisting them. So I'm going to refrain from making any motions. I think that, as the chief mentioned, we can take it from there. There's something in place that could benefit them. So that is it. Anybody else before I keep going? Councilmember Carlson?
Yeah, just a general statement. Like my colleagues, I had a lot of long conversations with city staff, CFO, chief of staff, and others, and also our advisors, our volunteer advisors to the budget committee. And the biggest complaint I hear is roads. Throughout the city, everybody thinks their neighborhood is the worst, and that we're only just not paying attention to them, but the roads are terrible throughout the city. This year again, I think it was Councilmember Clendenin's motion, but this year again, we moved additional money in to roads, and I know the mayor and chief of staff are trying to move more money in. Next year we need something like $200 million to catch up. We had the Great Recession, and then we had 8 years of neglect, and then we had some catch up the last few years, and there's no way we can catch up with the 12 or so years that the roads were underfunded. And we need to figure out how to do that more quickly. The mayor said today that at lunch that the CIT money will be added into roads if we get it. Also, the money that will come back from All for Transportation, we know a bunch of that's going to go in roads, but still it's not enough because we need something like $2 billion just to start to catch up on the roads. So I pushed every way I can to add more money in. If somebody else has another idea, let's do it. But over the next year, we really need to work hard to find more money for it. we put through the CRA huge chunks of money into affordable housing. We should have relied on the Tampa Housing Authority to do it, but we have been experimenting with subsidizing that. And thank you to all the activists who have been working with us on making that happen. Unfortunately, there aren't enough projects for some of the funding we put it. So folks who have projects, please bring them forward so we can get those moving, because we need to put people in homes. There are many other things going on. Stormwater and flooding, people are concerned about. That's a longer-term solution that's being implemented, and we're going to be entering phase 2 of that in the next couple of years. We'll get more comments on it. We need to fund parks, because everybody deserves to have clean parks that are well-maintained and have programming in them. And we know all the benefits of that, which some of my colleagues have talked about earlier. The last thing I'll say is back to the transit thing. You know, I've been working on different volunteer and other working on different kinds of transit projects for 20, 30 years. And I'm very in favor of transit. I understand the issues that folks mentioned in public comment. I agree with all of the things that they said. But what I would encourage you to do is, I Googled this. I don't know if my colleagues can tell me whether this is accurate or not, but there's a HART meeting on Monday, September 23rd at 6 p.m. at 1201 East 7th Avenue. And it looks like public comment maybe is due the day before. But I hope that you all will send, the website is gohart, GOHART.org. That is the organization that was spun out of the city 30, 40 years ago to handle transportation. Please, we need 500 emails to HART or 2,000 emails to HART. Please go with the same passion to HART and the county commissioners and convince them to do something about it, because the city of Tampa will not have the money to fix this. We need the HART board to fix this problem. It's their assignment. Thank you.
Councilman Moran.
Thank you. I was not going to bring up the CIT tax, but my colleague brought the 3 letters of fear. Community investment tax. I guess prior to 1996, we didn't have a city. We didn't have a police department. We didn't have a fire department. We didn't have water works. We didn't have anybody here. The city ran by itself. Prior to the overtaking of the city budget, which, and I'm going to prove it later on, 30 years. Let me tell you where the money's at. It costs us $250,000 every time there's an event in a certain place for 10 events. That's $2.5 million for 1 year. Multiply that by 30. There's also a concert deal where you have an event and 50% of the money is split. Sounds great, doesn't it? But the first $2 million is taken by them. That's a wonderful deal. So I'm just going to go over it lightly. What is public? Can anybody tell me what a public facility is? Because I haven't seen it anywhere, but that's what you're voting on. Can you go to any event that's a sporting event, just say it's a public facility, and walk in and walk out and say, I want to see the game, or I want to use the bathroom? The answer is absolutely not. But that's how they're going to word it, I believe. So let me go further. I'm not against doing something to help, but I'm 125% against doing what we're doing. When you talk about the CIT tax, and again, I didn't bring it up, the deal that was made with the county, even though we provide 30.9% of the money, tax collection in the city between city of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and Hillsborough County, we're getting back about 21%. So you're losing, let's say, 10% of your money, or a third really, when you collect 21 cents out of every 31 cents you put in. You're leaving up 1/3 of the money on the table. That's a wonderful idea. Great contract. When you do these things and you talk about a half a cent, that don't mean much. It produced millions and millions of dollars. And I'm only going to go slightly what I remember. The amount of money that we pay for if this tax passes will surpass the tax that was in 1996 without building a new venue. So if you really want to talk about where the money was, it wasn't in the CRAs. The CRAs are going to leave the city of Tampa when they're done with a lot more money that you could ever spend, I believe, because it'll be complete. It'll be part of a new city, part of a rise in Tampa to give everybody hope and aspiration of what we've done. In the meantime, your budget has gone up, went up 12% last year and going up 6% this year. So I don't want to hear that we're being shortchanged by the CRA, and the reason is that you can't get your road fixed. You can't get your road fixed because you gave it away 30 years ago. Not today. So what I'm saying is, hurrah to those who think that this is going to change for the betterment of society. It'll be another 15 years of giving something away. I would imagine it's taking a guess, $500 million. And I'm going to prove all this when I start doing my thing that I put myself into. So it's not about helping. It's about there's nothing left over. The parking is theirs, the concession is theirs, fine. The building is theirs. How many people lost their houses here because they either couldn't pay the mortgage or couldn't pay the rent? Yet they got a 30-year straight lease. No, not 1 penny increase. That's wonderful. So we go on and on and on the same thing. And I'm only one, maybe I'll stand alone, and I don't mind being alone. But I'm telling you just like it is. It's going to be hard to pass this tax. And I'm sorry that you brought up the CIT tax. I didn't want to talk about it, but I apologize to you in the public's eyes for turning me on like a stove. So it's something that you have to understand needs and wants. We need roads, and they want what you have they can have. How much more do you want? Some contract had $6.7 billion, and they still didn't want to sell. Valuation up $565 million, and they still. I don't understand it. If I had that kind of money, I only want the interest. You can have the money. But that's what we're facing. But thank you very much, and I apologize to you, Mr. Carlson, for saying those 3 words. My throat got to the point that I had to either say something or burst. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Vera, were you next?
If I may.
Councilmember Clendenin, yes?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One thing I also wanted to mention, I see our friends here from Tampa Firefighters, Local 754 is, it's incumbent, I have coming back to us reports on the status of Station 24 as well as property acquisition for fleet maintenance. I think that if we can, in our last 2.5 or so years, move these things forward, and they will be moved forward, and then make real progress on something for downtown fire expansion, that's going to be a real win. And these are things that are baked in here either through budget allocations or through bonding, things that are going to happen. I think that's very important. Also wanted to mention something that's important in this budget, that for the 2nd straight year in a row, we make a 6-figure investment in returning citizens job training. Last year, we had passed funds that combined with what the county did to put forth $250,000 in returning citizens job training. So that's something that I think is really, really big. I wanted to go back, though, if I may, to the issue of mass transit and the HART board. I tell you, looking at the HART board in some of the ways that have been mentioned here today defies reality. And to the transit activists out there who I work with in the HART board and who know exactly things that are being said and why they're being said, you all know better, but I still want to explain. You go back to 2018, we passed all for transportation penny sales tax. About 60% it passed in Hillsborough County. Would have put forth about $140 million for HART, got struck down by the Florida Supreme Court. 2020, the decision is made not to go forward in the county commission with another sales tax. I had spoken out in favor of doing it. It would have been a preemptive replacement sales tax in case if the Supreme Court struck down that penny sales tax from 2018. 2022, we put forth the same, essentially, penny sales tax that would have helped fund HART. It fails by half a point. Again, in a year when candidates who were very pro-county commission mass transit candidates lost with about 46% or so, that initiative, after it got struck down into circuit court, failed with about 49.5% or so. It ran ahead of pro-mass transit candidates. You fast forward to 2024, what's HART going to do? Are we going to put a third tax on the ballot behind CIT, behind the school board? And by the way, for a county commission, that if we ask, hey, county commission, would you let us raise our own taxes? Guess what they're going to tell us in a very diplomatic way? They're going to tell us to go to hell. Okay, they're gonna tell us no. So why would we do that? Why would we do that? If y'all wanna write, folks, write the heartboard. Y'all know I'm available. I probably have 1, 2, 3 community meetings a month. I'm easily found. And so are a lot of the Heart Board members, Republicans and Democrats, very hardworking public servants who take on a very thankless job. But if y'all want to write, folks, and say, why aren't we doing more for mass transit, go take a look at 2018. Go take a look at 2022 and ask elected officials who were in office, what did you do for that tax? What did you do for all for transportation in 2022? Not so long ago. That was the opportunity. Legal issues got entangled in that, unfortunately. That's the question to ask is, what were you doing for mass transit when we had the opportunity to use it? Nobody likes to support higher taxes. Nobody does. But there are times in which you have to do it because it's about leadership. It's about leadership. You can either go forward and do the right thing or take cheap shots from cheap seats. I choose leadership, and I know that we all do here too. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Clendenis.
How much fun are we having now?
It's the place to be.
Well, I want a place to be, must-see TV. One, I want to make a couple of points, and one, just so y'all know, we all know that Tampa is a booming city. We're growing, and we have stress points on every piece of our infrastructure. From, as Councilman Carlson said, our parks, our transportation, our roads, our school, every part of the city of Tampa and our metropolitan area has stress points. And those stress points aren't solved out of thin air. They're solved by usually good governance, good government, and adequate funding. Clearly, in the state of Florida and now in our county, we do not have adequate funding to be able to provide the services that the citizens of the city of Tampa want, need, and expect, and really should demand. But as you see in this particular budget, it was tight. The ad valorems didn't come in what people thought it was going to be, and there was very little disposable amount of money that we had very little flexibility of how to allocate resources. That's why in public comment they were talking about how much time we spent talking about such small amounts, because the honest answer is because those big amounts, they're obligated. We don't have any control. We don't have control over. They are what they are. The salaries are what they are. Right now, the millage rate in the city of Tampa, we're like the lowest millage rate in the area, I believe. I mean, I don't know of anybody else that has a lower millage rate than us. We're like the lowest tax rate for a city. Somebody correct me, am I wrong? Am I wrong by that? Anybody that knows? John?
We're
I think you're right, sir, I'll confirm.
Yeah, I believe we're the lowest, so that's our tax rate is extremely low. And again, our stresses are high, our tax rates are low. I'm gonna go into the CIT pool because it's been discussed. You see our firefighters in the back row back there, the people that keep us safe. And it's not just fire, it's fire and rescue. They're the ones that save you when you have a medical emergency and they respond. They're the ones that are pulling you out of a car or responding when your loved one has a medical emergency. They have a great deal of needs. We don't have the money to fund those needs. We're trying to do it. We're borrowing money instead of paying it as we go, as we should on a lot of these things. We're having to borrow it, and guess what? Borrowing is really expensive, and it's long term. It's detrimental in many cases. There's good borrowing and there's some bad borrowing. Unfortunately, right now we have to do disproportionate borrowing because we don't have the money in the budget. We have police back here. The same thing. You saw some of the positions that are open and some of the needs. Everybody has needs, and the CIT, what it has provided, and there's nothing that Councilman Miranda that you said that was untrue. Unfortunately, we don't have a go-back machine. We don't have a time machine. We can't go back and redo the agreements that were made and that we're contractually obligated to fulfill. They are what they are. We can't fix it. It is what it is. We were handed this reality, and now we have to deal with it. And the reality is, this city, unless you all are prepared to raise our millage substantially, cannot operate without the CIT. We're dependent upon it for fire. We're dependent upon it for our police. We're dependent upon it for our roads and our infrastructure. Without that, I mean, we're basically shutting down. So, or we're increasing people's property taxes. I mean, that's the honest answer. There's no other answer to that. So y'all be careful when you're advocating one way or another, because I don't know what the solution is going to be when people are sitting in these chairs. And if the CIT does not pass, what we're going to either have to do with our critical services that we provide the citizens of the city of Tampa, or tax increases. Dennis, you had an answer to that?
Yes, sir. Dennis Ruggiero, Chief Financial Officer. Put it on the LML now. You see over to the far right, fiscal year 2024, comparing ourselves to Orlando, St. Petersburg, and Miami. We are indeed the lowest millage.
Okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't 100% sure, but that's what I thought. I just wanted to put it in perspective that CIT covers a huge gap in funding for the city of Tampa. If that funding gap is not filled, and by the way, 30% of that money is paid for by people that don't live in Hillsborough County. So that is like free bonus for the people that live here. It's a subsidy for the people that live here, because 30% are being paid for by people in Pinellas and Pasco and those commuters. So, and tourists, yeah, exactly. So that's my pitch, just keeping it real about what the really needs are, and just being out there honest with folks that it's this or that, and that's where we're at. Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you. Chief, Dennis Herrera, I just wanted to ask you a question about the in-kind services, because even though that's not a line item on our budget, wouldn't that be considered overtime pay for our staff, for our officers and things like that when we are providing those services?
Are you asking, I'm sorry, ma'am, you asking me, the Chief of Staff?
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's a
apologize.
Chief of Staff question. So you said when we look at the parameters of supporting things through special events, when we do that, it still has to be paid for. I know we use the word in kind, I just didn't want it to be thought of so loosely. It actually is a budget item if you're paying for it in overtime pay, right?
So does John Bennett, Chief of Staff, to say it broadly, it's either redirecting those services to do that work or paying for those services to do that work over and above our normal work. And so there's different opportunities. Sometimes the law enforcement and fire sector are hired extra duty, which is billed to the promoter. And then, of course, there's overtime. So there's really, it's in kind, as we're just saying, go here and work, or we're paying extra duty, or we're paying overtime. But it's all going to come back to the budget in some realm, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very.
Can I say one last thing?
My goodness.
I'm sorry.
Sir.
Well, I just want to say, last year I was very critical of the budget presentation and the documentation that we got. It was my first budget year. I want to thank the administration and Dennis and Mike and his team and everybody for how forthcoming everybody was, how early we got this budget, probably earlier than at least in modern history as far as the council getting it from the administration. It was very detailed. It was printed. We've had multiple meetings. They've been very receptive about answering questions as they've come up. So again, I'm willing to criticize when criticism is due. I want to applaud the efforts that were made. It was noticeable. And also our budget analyst back there is a newly hired person to help us be a liaison with the administration and answer our questions when we call. So all of that has worked so much better this year. And maybe I've got a year under my belt more than experience, but it's been a lot less painful this year than it was last year.
I'll second that.
Thank you, sir, very kind. Thank you.
Councilmember Hurtak.
Thank you, and that's actually what I was going to say as well. This is just, I really appreciate the time and attention and energy. I actually sit for a monthly meeting with both Mr. O'Hara and Chief of Staff, and now Ms. Kopesky has joined in those meetings, and they've just been incredibly valuable, and I look forward to continuing them in FY25. And I just want to thank council too. This particular council has just spent a lot more time on the budget and looking at ways we can move money, find different things, and I just want to appreciate both staff and council for open thoughts on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Carlson. Did you have?
Yeah, just to say the same thing. Thank you to the administration, all the people that were named and more, for the transparency, getting all the data out, getting it out early. And you know, as the mayor said at lunch meeting today, we all haven't always gotten along, but but we're all trying to collaborate now, and what the public wants is collaboration. And thank you to everyone for collaborating on this. It's a much smoother process than I've seen in 5 years, and I appreciate everybody's help.
Very kind, thank you.
Councilmember, wait, Vieira Henderson.
I wanted to echo what was said about, by Councilman Clendenin on the process, and including with Hager, who does a great job. And I always like to give credit where credit's due. Councilman Clendenin had pushed for this position, and before that, it was former Councilman John Dingfelder. I remember because when he first brought it up, I voted no, and I was wrong on that, and I voted for Councilman Clendenin's proposal, because having a budget analyst, I think, has really helped us all a lot, and it's going to save taxpayer dollars in time. So I think it's a great thing. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll wrap it up with my comments before we start approving this budget. I want to thank the Citizens Budget Advisory Board. I saw Mr. Albert Cook, who is a brand-new appointee, so he'll be going into his first budget. He was here earlier. I want to thank Ms. Sandy Sanchez for all her work, because she stepped off, and Mr. Cook came on, and we had another member, Stephanie Pointer, in the back. So thanks to all of them for all their hard work, because it's a lot of volunteer hours for what they do. I see members from Hope here. Everything that I've committed to with the stormwater ponds is going to be coming out of the CRA budget. So it's not part of this discussion, but I'm going to meet with you regarding moving forward with the other ponds. This is a discussion that is between us, I guess, but I just wanted to acknowledge that they've been here, and I'm going to be reaching out to you to update you on everything. I talked to Mr. McCray at the CRA, which is a separate budget, but how we're going to keep moving forward with those additional stormwater improvements and everything else. So I just want to publicly acknowledge that. That concludes public comment. That concludes the second round of questions. I'm looking at the script here and has asked if city council or staff needs to request or needs a break. I don't think we do, because we just need to read this stuff and we'll close it out. So at this time, Councilmember Miranda, if you would read item number 10, and Mr. Shelby, Mr. Vasky.
Justin Vasky, according to the script, we need to close the public comment.
Not the hearing, just the public comment.
Public hearing or close public comment?
Public comment.
Just public, okay, a motion
Yeah,
to.
not the hearing. So may I have a motion to close public
Second.
comment? Motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed? That is just public comment, not the hearing.
Right.
We don't need a break. So Councilmember Miranda, does he have to read word
Yeah.
for word?
Word for
Yeah, no
word, sir,
problem.
yes.
No problem.
Go ahead, sir.
You're gonna steal his thunder. This is his once-a-year thunder.
Go ahead, sir. He's got thunder every meeting. Go ahead.
You guys make me laugh. Anyway, item number 10, resolution levying an ad valorem tax rate of 6 2/10 76 thousandths, that is 6.2076 mils upon all real and personal taxable property in the city of Tampa for the fiscal year of 2025, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to certify such millage, providing an effective date. Section 1, that an ad valorem tax rate of 6.
You have to read every word.
It is to be resolved that by the City Council of the City of Tampa, Florida, Section 1, that an ad valorem tax rate of 6 2/76 thousandths, or 6.2076 mils, to raise the amount of money as fixed in the operating and capital budget of the City of Tampa for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025, for the general fund for the maintenance and operation of the City of Tampa, including in part Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Tampa, is hereby levied as provided by law on all real and personal property taxable for the purposes in the City of Tampa.
Sir, can you please reread just the millage, the 6.2076?
3.2076, that's what I said, didn't I?
You missed the 10 when you read it out. You said 670.
Let me read section 1 again, so there's no,
Misunderstanding.
I don't want to go back and be resolved by the City Council of the City of Tampa, Florida. Section 1, that an ad valorem tax of the rate of 6 2/76 10,000, or 6.2076 mils, to raise the amount of money as fixed in the operating and capital budget of the City of Tampa for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2024, and ending September 30th, 2025 for the general fund and maintenance and operation of the city of Tampa, including in part Community Redevelopment Agency of the city of Tampa, is hereby levied as provided by law on all real and personal property taxable for the purposes of the city of Tampa.
Perfect.
Section 2, you threw me off key. Section 2, that the mayor and the city clerk, as the proper authorities for the city of Tampa, are duly authorized, empowered, and directly to certify the property appraiser of Hillsborough County, Florida, the millage to be levied for all purposes for the fiscal year 2025 in the city of Tampa, to wit, 6.2076 mil, which exceed the rollback rate of 5.9691 mils as defined in section 200.0651 of the Florida statute by 4.00% to the request of the levy of the millage as set forth upon all real and personal property in the city of Tampa as above set forth in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution and laws of the state of Florida. Section 3, that other proper officers of the city of Tampa are authorized to do things necessary and properly in order to carry out and make effective the terms and conditions of this resolution shall become effective immediately upon adoption.
All right, now you read item 11, and that's the official motion, and we vote from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 11, a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2025 millage rate. Move to adopt the proposed millage rate of 6.2076 mils, which is 4.00% more than the rollback millage rate of 5.9691 mils for property tax funds, which are used to support the general fund operating budget, the city community redevelopment agency of the city of Tampa.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Councilmember Henderson with the second. Roll call vote.
Can I just say one thing?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I say this every time, but just to remind the public, the millage rate is staying the same. We're not increasing it. Your actual taxes may go up or down depending on what your property is doing. A lot of people I've talked to, they think their property value has gone down, and so theirs could potentially going down, but we're not raising the rate.
Okay, roll call vote.
Clendenin,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Hurtak.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, Councilmember Miranda, item number
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 13, I move an ordinance being presented for second reading and adoption. An ordinance adopting the budget of the city of Tampa for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025, providing for the levy as provided by law of a tax on all taxable property in the city of Tampa and fixing the millage within said city, making appropriations in accordance with the provisions of said budget, authorizing and directing the mayor and city clerk as the proper authorities of the city of Tampa to certify to the property appraiser of Hillsborough County, Florida, the millage to be levied for the purposes of fiscal year 2025 in the city of Tampa, providing an effective date.
We have a second from Councilmember Clendenin. Yes, ma'am?
And I'd just like to include an amendment that includes all the city council motions and money movement that we've made.
Is that okay?
All the changes.
Mr. Vasky, is that okay, just to memorialize it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Henderson,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson,
Yes.
Hurtak.
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
All right, someone make a motion. No. This is a resolution adopting the City of Tampa capital improvement budget and program for FY 2025 through FY
Mr. Chair.
2029.
Providing an effective date.
Providing an effective date.
Mr. Chair,
Wait, I'm not making the motion. Who would like to make that
there's
motion?
I've got a substitute. I don't know if everybody got
Yeah,
the revision.
Justin Vasky, Legal Department. We've made a substitute resolution here. We made a minor change to the agreement.
Okay.
Or, excuse me, to the resolution. It's in section 1. I provided council with a underlined version, and I'll read it to the public, this additional line. It's in section
Yes.
1. Nothing herein constitutes approval of any contracts for capital improvement projects, as such contracts are subject to approval by Tampa City Council. That's the addition. Thank you.
Yes?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious what it says, but there were certain projects, without naming projects, where the staff came to us and said, well, you already approved it. And what they meant was the CIP. This clearly says that we haven't. And I want to thank Justin and Andrea and others for working last night and this morning on this change, and hopefully you all will approve it.
So you
I'll
will
make-
be
so I'm-
moving a substitute
If you could
resolution.
just move to
I'm-
move to
you
accept the
gonna do it?
substitution first, and then you can move the sub.
Can we get a motion to accept the substitution? Motion from Councilmember Henderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Clendenin. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, may I have a motion to
Move the substitute.
move the substitute? We have a motion from Councilmember Vieira, second from Councilmember Clendenin. Roll call vote.
Vieira.
Yes.
Miranda.
Yes.
Carlson. Hurtak.
Yes.
Clendenin.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
And Maniscalco.
Yes. Can I get a motion to
Motion
receive
carried
and file?
unanimously.
Okay, motion to receive and
Second.
file all documents from Councilmember Miranda, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. And now may I have a motion to close the second public hearing?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilmember Clendenin, second from Councilmember Henderson. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.